Okay, so thank you everyone for coming today. And I'm just going to go right ahead and introduce Jaime Shapiro, who is a national trainer and speaker on LinkedIn, among many other things that you're going to see in his profile. And I'm just going to kind of give it right to you, Jaime.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be back. This is actually my 6th time presenting here for purchase. Hopefully next year, I said this last year, but hopefully next year we can actually be back in person. And like Jessica said, one of the most important parts about this is I want this to be as interactive as possible. To me, a really good session is one where people are asking questions and I'm showing them how to utilize LinkedIn. I do this as a live demo specifically so I can show folks how to use the functionality of LinkedIn. So I really want you to ask questions. I usually stop every 5 or 6 minutes to ask for questions. And we'll go through the profile, what you need to do to optimize it. The second part, we'll start talking about how to find jobs and turn cold job leads into warm job leads. In addition, we'll talk about finding posts and engaging the right people who could potentially make a difference in your career. If you have time at the end, we'll talk about connection requests and things like that. Now, again, I want you to ask as many questions as you possibly can. I'm going to put my video off because I want you to focus much more on the content rather than focusing on me. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. In addition, at the end, around 2 p.m., I plan to pause, and that could be at any time, ask any questions you have about LinkedIn. So you can definitely ask any questions, whether we're discussing that material or not. I can call it Stump Chaim on LinkedIn. If you can do it, that'd be great. And we'll ask and answer all those questions, but definitely be involved throughout. So where does all the magic begin on LinkedIn? So the easiest way to get to LinkedIn Edit is by clicking this little picture over here. And this will take you into the edit mode of your profile. Nobody else has access to this. I once had a client who was worried because he thought because he had access to this that other people do. This is obviously password protected, but I want to normalize a different behavior here. What you should really do in order to get to that section is click the little me button over here and then view profile, then I'll take you to the same place. Why do you want to do it that way? Because you could be on other pages that don't have that photo. And this makes sure you can access it from anywhere on LinkedIn because this top toolbar is the same. That is the best way to get into the edit mode of your profile. And I want to normalize that also because there are a lot of other things that you can do here if you click on that link that you cannot do through the regular edit mode of the profile. So let's take a look at the profile. What are the 3 most important parts of your LinkedIn profile? It's what I call the LinkedIn Triumvirate. These are 3 things that show up everywhere that you do on LinkedIn. Those 3 things are your photo, your name, and this right here, which is called your LinkedIn headline. Now, because they show up everywhere that you're doing emails, connection requests, even if you're tagging somebody in a post, you want to make sure you maximize each of those to present you in the best possible way. So let's go into each. First is the photo. Click on the photo. That'll give you the opportunity to view or edit. And edit button over here allows you to zoom, straighten, do all sorts of funky things to get the picture exactly the way that you want. Now, what you can do is get a professional headshot photo if you want. I think most cell phone cameras nowadays are good enough that if you have a good cell phone camera, you could have somebody take the picture of you against a white background and have them put that up as your actual profile photo. The profile photos that happen to be pretty popular now are off-center slightly, as you see here, and with a dark background, but it does not have to be that way. The most common question I get about the photos is, what should I be wearing? And the answer to this is very different depending on what you're going to be looking for in terms of your profession. So people who are working in startups and even in the arts will be wearing very different clothes potentially than what people who want to work at a bank might be looking to wear. The idea is to wear the kind of clothes you'd be wearing if you met top tier people who could hire you in a networking event in your profession. So for me, because I'm selling myself as a LinkedIn expert and a college professional, I'm wearing the suit and tie. For somebody who does set direction, for somebody who does dance, some costumes or wearing clothes that is more closely affiliated to what you would see people in those professions is what you want to be wearing. So that's how you do your photo. I'm going to click out of that, and we're going to go into the rest of the triumvirate here, your name and your LinkedIn headline. You do that by clicking on this little pencil right over here. Click on this guy, and this gives you the opportunity to put in your first name and your last name. Now, this may sound simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds. You might see some people put in doctor before their first name, or even some people want to put a little selling point in afterwards, Jaime Shapiro, LinkedIn expert. I advise against that, or even to put in master's in education, because it doesn't look as professional. Plus, it can also skew the search results when people are looking for you or trying to tag you. So I think you should just put your first name and your last name here. I do think LinkedIn should add a prefix and a suffix to this. They haven't yet, but hopefully they will at some point. In addition, they changed this recently. It used to be maiden or former name. Now they have additional names. This is great if you have a name that a lot of people know you as. I work with a lot of Orthodox students whose legal name is Isaac, but their friends know them as Yitzi. And this way they can put the name Yitzi down in addition to Isaac, and it shows up on their profile. So when their friends see them, they're able to engage with them. But it also works perfectly for a former name or a maiden name. Okay, so that's your name. And the last part, and I think this is the most valuable real estate in all of social media. This is your LinkedIn headline. Basically, if somebody sees your name and they see your photo, what is it about your account? What is it about your profile that makes them want to engage with you? So you want to tell them who you are, what you can do for them. So for me, as a person who's a LinkedIn consultant, I'm promoting the different things that I can do for folks. What you do not want to have here is student SUNY purchase. That's important, but it doesn't describe who you are and the skills you bring to the table. So if you were to say aspiring set management professional with experience working on The Daily Show or things like that, and experience in different kinds of languages or different kinds of art forms, that's a much better kind of description than just putting down that you're a student at SUNY purchase, because that doesn't really describe who you are. Give it the information that gives the person who might be able to hire you confidence that you have the very specific skills that they'd be looking to for hiring. So you have those exact skills they're looking for, and they see it in your profile headline, and then potentially they'll be able to hire you based on that. So that's, I want to stop, a good place to stop for questions after the triumvirate. And after that, I want to get into a couple more things here on this part. So are there any questions so far?
So there's nothing in the chat right now, but does anyone have any questions they want to just ask voice or add to the chat?
Okay, so we will keep going. So next thing I want to show you here is actually what's called your background photo or background image here. If you don't change this, it's going to stay blank, and you don't want it to stay blank because this is a great opportunity to help promote your brand. And you put something here that helps promote your brand. So just to click on this, you see it's a wider photograph, but as a person who sells himself as somebody who's able to give good LinkedIn webinars, nothing sells me better than these folks staring at me here, giving a LinkedIn webinar. Now, I work with a lot of accounting students at Turo, and there's not many action shots you can actually do for accounting students. For people who work in the arts, people who've done set direction, who've been part of a dance group or performing, action shots are really, really good. If you have some good high quality action shot that you can put down there, I think that really sells you much better than some of the generic images that you can put up there. And there are some generic ones that it offers you, and you can put those up, which is better than nothing, but something that sells your brand is the best thing that you want to do. Again, here you can drag, reposition, straighten, and do all these other things to make it exactly the way that you want. One thing to be aware of is that your photo is going to show up here on the bottom on the left. So you want to make sure you're not hiding any really important part of the photo, having it covered by your profile photo. So you want to make sure that you avoid that and choose where, like I am here, pretty much in the middle of the photo so that it's maximized in that particular way. And to move on to a couple other things that are here under the main part of your contact information. Great addition a couple of years ago, LinkedIn allows you to put in an audio recording of your name. And the reason this is important is if you have a name like, well, Chaim, and people can't pronounce it, this gives you the opportunity in your own voice to record your name. Now, I have the sound enabled, so you should be able to hear this. Tell me if you can't.
Chaim.
Hopefully you guys can hear me say it, pronouncing my name there.
Yep.
That's what that allows you to do. And it's a great tool for people who have names that are not sort of the traditional Anglican names, because that way people have a better idea of how to pronounce it. You can only record this on the mobile app currently. So if you have a name, you want to put that audio recording, please do so. I advise people against putting a little sales pitch on here, because I think people understand if people are listening to it, you could say Jaime Shapiro, LinkedIn expert. But for people who have names like Chaim, I don't want people to be discouraged from clicking on this because they're getting sales pitches. So I think it's much better to just leave it as your first name or your last name and how to pronounce it. Okay, next thing, this is about a year and a half old. Also, they added the ability for you to add your personal pronouns to your account. So if you click here, you see it has 3 options that you can choose. and you can choose any one of those three if they best represent you. There's also a custom option, so you can go in here and actually put in the pronouns that best reflect your gender identity if they don't match the ones that LinkedIn has. So you can definitely do that and add it to your profile. It actually shows up in parentheses right after your profile name. And scrolling down over here, another thing you want to put in is industry. They changed this recently. It was a drop-down list. Now it's actually, if you start filling it in, it gives you some choices. So if I start putting in arts, you can see some of the choices that it gives you, but you can come with the one that's closest to you. It's very important to choose something here because people do searches, and these show up very high in searches, especially for people on the recruiting side who are using LinkedIn Recruiter. So we have one further thing down here. You'll see also that I have my postal code. I chose New York City as my location, even though I live in West Hempstead. More people are familiar with New York City by a long shot than are with the little city of West Hempstead in Long Island, which is why I've chosen to actually include that as opposed to having that as West Hempstead. Okay, that's the main card part of your LinkedIn profile and how to maximize those things. I think I saw there was a question that came in here, so I want to try and grab that if I can.
So the question is, what is the difference between LinkedIn and LinkedIn Pro?
So, okay, LinkedIn Pro or Premium is where you actually pay for an account on LinkedIn, and it gives you some extra features. I actually have LinkedIn Premium because I actually do a lot of searches for our students when it comes time to give first destination outcomes as to where our students are. I would say 95% of the time, for the vast majority of students, it's not worth paying the extra money to get LinkedIn Premium. LinkedIn claims it pushes you up search slightly higher on the search rankings, whether it does or it doesn't. And you have unlimited searches. The vast majority of regular users are not going to run into that limit. The only other thing, and we'll talk about this at the end, is you can actually see 90 days worth of people who's viewed your profile as opposed to just the last 5 people, which is what it normally defaults to. We'll go to this later. But for most folks, they're not getting more than 5 a day. So there's really no need necessarily to actually have that and pay for premium. I would say save your money and utilize it for something that's more directly related to your career, or even getting a coffee would be worth more, I think, than spending the money on premium. Thank you for that question. There's another question?
There's another question, which is,
Sure.
Do you put down the industry that you are currently in or the one you would like to be in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you, the problem is LinkedIn doesn't do the idea of having multiple expertise well. So I think the goal is to put down what you're shooting for. In other words, if you're currently working in an industry and you plan to stay in it for a couple of years, that's what you want to go with. If, however, you're looking to get into something else, I'd probably go with where you're shooting, because the people who are going to be looking to hire you will be looking and searching for people in those particular industries. So LinkedIn needs to do that better. It doesn't currently, and they really need to do that better. Now you see here, I want to show you that my LinkedIn URL is linkedin.com with in and my name. Now it's important to change that because the default was LinkedIn, my name, and a whole bunch of other letters. The way you do that, I'll show you again, edit public profile and URL. That'll take you to a separate page where you can click over here and change this to your first name, last name. Now, with the name like Jaime Shapiro, it wasn't difficult to get it. For more common names, you put a dash in between, an underscore, a dash after, or even this could be the place where you put down CPA, MED, or something like that. Get it as close to your name as you can. And once you do and you click save, that's going to become your URL. I'll show you later also, it's going to impact all the other URLs that are affected with your account. And currently I use this as a signature line in my emails, because from my perspective, there's absolutely no reason not to have a professional LinkedIn account URL on my email account, because if somebody's interested in engaging with me, they can do so very, very simply. So I'm going to click out of that, go back to the main page. Just one piece of advice, if you are going to go to that edit public profile and URL, always refresh the page, because often it will not allow you to do any other changes until you refresh that page. I've had clients that have lost some of the changes they made on their profile after having gone in there. Okay. Last thing I want to show you here at the top is the contact information, which is a little more information here, and then we'll pause for questions. Now you got to hover over this, click on this, and you got to click on this little pencil right over here. And this gives you the opportunity to add up to 3 websites. So you see here, I have my personal website and I have a description here. Now here's the trick here. You could definitely add your portfolio here. You definitely add a company or a blog, but look, there's no opportunity to describe what your website is. The trick here is to go to the word other. That's going to open up another field where you can actually describe what your website does. So people know they're going to JaimeShapiro.com, they know that basically that's their opportunity to book me to give a LinkedIn workshop like this one. So I recommend choosing other than putting down your portfolio, but being descriptive. This is my art portfolio with a link to all of my artwork or things along those lines. Okay, so that's how you would do that. I do have my cell phone number up here. Some people are hesitant to do that. Obviously, I do get some spam calls because of it, but I get plenty of spam calls anyway. So I'd rather get more spam calls, but as opposed to missing somebody, it might be very, very important than rather than not have that up there. And also, I do not put my address anywhere on social media or publicly because I do not want people showing up at my house. That's the top part, the card, as we talk about it here on LinkedIn. Any questions about this top part, about the contact information or any part of the triumvirate or setting up your URL?
Nothing currently in the chat.
Okay, great. So the next thing I want to show you, and this is one of the more common questions that I get, is LinkedIn has something called open to work, which you can actually put a frame on your photo that shows and illustrates to everybody looking that you're open to work. That would be open to, and you could set it. I have it set currently here on my profile. So if I go down over here and click on this little pencil, it's going to show folks what I'm open to. Now, I'm very happy at Turo. I've been here 14 and a half years, but if somebody offered me $1 million to go somewhere else, I would definitely consider that. But I have this set so only people who are paying for a LinkedIn Recruiter, which are people who are paying for an extra service on LinkedIn, can see it. Now, look what happens if I change this to all LinkedIn members can see that I'm open for a job. Now look at the picture. Look what happens over here on this picture. It should, if I refresh, there it goes. It has added the open to work frame to my LinkedIn photo. That way, when somebody sees my photo, wherever it shows up, it tells them right away that I am open to work and I'm looking for a job. There has been significant debate in the LinkedIn community as to whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I tend to think this is not the place to put the fact that you're open to work, because people make very quick decisions on LinkedIn. They're making a decision based on what they see, and they don't know you. And I don't know that you want to have open to work to be the defining criteria that people see you're looking for a job. I think it's much better to put that in posts and other places when you're looking for a job as opposed to having it on your open to work frame. There are definitely some people who disagree with that, but I tend to feel very strongly that it's more of a negative than it is a positive. And just to show you to get rid of this, the only way to get rid of it, I need to go back in here. And if I change this back to people using LinkedIn Recruiter, click the save button and refresh the page, it will remove that from my account. So now, again, there's no open to work frame, and only the folks who are using LinkedIn Recruiter are actually able to access that. Okay, any questions on that? I think I saw a question pop up.
No questions right now.
Okay, great. So we're going to move down to the next part here. Now, probably if you don't have creator mode on, you're going to actually have your about section before your featured section. And to answer the question quickly, you probably do not want to have creator mode on. So I'm going to go to the about section, which is probably showing up first on your accounts. And this is an opportunity for you to give more of a narrative of who you are and what you can bring to the table. If you don't see this on your account, go to add profile section and it'll be the opportunity to add that. And that's where you'll be able to add that. Now, here's a couple of things about this. You know, I was once at a session and I told people nobody likes Seymour. What I was trying to say is that nobody clicks this button. So the things above the fold, as we used to say in the New York Times, much more important than things below it. Put your top level stuff here, but look, there's still more information you can put here. If somebody is very, very interested in you, this gives them the opportunity to find out more information about you. So I think it's a good idea to fill this out with more information. Just make sure that you're optimizing the most important part. And I do have my website and my email address here. So people who are trying to connect with me can do so easily without having to pay for what's called an in-mail if they don't actually have access to my accounts. But again, this is highly searchable. And if somebody is very interested in your account, chances are they'll look through this, and this is your opportunity to sell them on more things, okay? And I'm gonna move up here to the featured section, which is probably showing up in your account under the about section again, because you don't have creator mode on. I think this is one of the best changes to LinkedIn in the last 2 years. It gives you the opportunity to include rich media content and feature it on your profile to show who you are and what you do. Now, as a person who claims he can give a great LinkedIn webinar, nothing sells me better than somebody coming on here and clicking this, and it takes them right to the YouTube of my giving a LinkedIn webinar. And to me, that sells me better than anything I can do myself, because I don't need to go and tell them that I'm somebody who can do this. They can actually hear it. Now, this could be very different for students. Again, if you have artwork that you put up there, a performance, put the video up there, the way you add things right over here, add a post, newsletter, article, link, or media. So the link could be to a portfolio, the link could be to a performance, it could be to a video. Another thing that I recommend that folks do here potentially is, again, I'm not looking for a job, so I have this further down, but you can actually link to your resume on here. So I have my resume set up over here. If you click on this and click on this, people who are not that proficient in LinkedIn can actually download my actual resume to a desktop and send it to somebody who might be interested in it. You also notice here that I did not have my address on my resume. That was done by just uploading a document. The other way to do it is to upload it to a third-party hosting service like I have here on SlideShare. And this allows people to see it on SlideShare and also download it to their desktop as well. So I definitely recommend that people do that. If you want to change around the order of things here, there's a little reorder button right over here. And you can just move this around, move up, move down, and switch the order, and then I'll switch the order on the way that it shows up on your account. You know, obviously, just like everything else here, the first three are the most important because those are the ones that are really showing up when people are looking at your accounts. Very few people are going beyond that and seeing the other things. Plus, by the way, remember when I talked about changing your LinkedIn URL? Well, look what happens here. You see this? This actually shows me that same URL, but I can actually share my featured section, just the featured section, with other people as well. So I think it's a very powerful way to share that featured section. And if you want to share somebody who wants to just see that, you can send them the URL to that. So having that professional URL makes a difference there as well. Pause here for questions on the featured or about sections or anything else we've spoken about.
Nothing in the chat right now, but anyone have any questions?
I'm explaining everything perfectly. That's great.
Awesome.
All right. So we're going to move down here to the next thing, which is your work experience. Again, work experience, I think, is very, very important because it allows you to give more of a narrative, I think, that you can on a resume. Most career services professionals that I speak to will make it very clear that you don't want to go beyond one, maybe 2 pages. I'm a big believer in one-page resumes for college students. Here's an opportunity to put a little bit more information. So how do you do this? First of all, if you want to add something, you can click the add button right over here. That'll allow you to add a position. But let's take a look at how you actually set this up. You click the little pencil, and I click on my pencil right over here. The first thing you want to do is make sure to sync this with your company. So look what happens. See this little logo here for Touro University? Look what happens when I get rid of the Y here. That disappears. I need to actually click on the auto-filled Touro University to make sure it syncs. That way I know I'm showing up in the search results that people are doing for Touro University. So you want to make sure you do that and include the information. By the way, keep this to off. You don't want people getting updates every time you make a small change to your profile. But you can also put in bullets right over here, like I did over here. LinkedIn should have the bullet feature. It does not. It doesn't look perfect, but I still think it looks better than putting in a bunch of random text that looks like big blocks of text. So I put in bullets, cut and paste right off of my resume. Another important thing to notice here is that you'll see here that I've had multiple positions at Touro. I was assistant director before I was director, and this line over here on the end shows the continuity of being at the same place and taking on more responsibility. The trick to that is making sure that this date, July 2016, that I ended as assistant director, matches up with this date, July 2016, when I started the new position. That will give you the opportunity to show that continuity line going through. Otherwise, it'll show up like I have here for my social media consultant as a completely separate job, which is not what you want to do. You want to have that show up where the people see that continuity. By the way, another thing people ask me all the time, well, you know, I've been working in Starbucks while I'm in college, but, you know, I got a job part-time working on a set of The Daily Show or something like that. But if I want to change that and highlight that first. So as long as it's a current actual position, click on this button right over here, and you can drag this up to the top, and that's going to change it on your account. If I go out here and go back to my profile at the top, it changed Touro University to my social media consulting company. So it's very easy to change. I recommend not changing this frequently, but if something comes up and you want to change it, it does make sense to change it that way. And you can very simply change it back as well, which I want to do so that my boss doesn't look at my profile and get upset at me. But the idea is you can change that and focus on the most important thing. But again, the trick here is you want to make sure that it's a current job. Otherwise, it will not allow you to put that first. LinkedIn also recently announced that you have the ability to put in a career break. So for folks who haven't had jobs because they were in school or because potentially of a medical issue, or even if they were out of a job for a while, you could actually add a career break to this. I'm not necessarily a big believer in that. Career break is this one over here, and it gives you some choices to add. But it's one of the things LinkedIn is trying to do, make it more normal for the fact that there are career breaks in people's careers, and it should be normalized. So I do like the idea on LinkedIn's part, even if it doesn't work in quite the way they intended. Again, here you see that this URL has my personalized URL in it, so that's important to have that personalized URL. The next question I normally get on this is, well, how far back should I go? And this is where this is great, because it is not really the same as would be a resume. You can put more information here and go way, way back if you want to. As long as it's a positive experience, I don't see any reason not to go back, because people could actually see here that, well, a lifetime ago, I worked hauling furniture and working a register at a thrift store when I was in college. To me, that presents me in a positive way, and I think there's no reason to not to include that in my job experience. Very few people are looking all the way down there, but if they're that interested, let them see it and see what I did. The only reason not to do this, if you're worried about ageism and age discrimination, then you want to keep it so people don't look back and see that you had jobs in the 1990s if you're afraid they're going to discriminate you based on the basis of age. So that's the work experience. I didn't think I see any questions come up there, but I want to pause to see if there are any before we move on to the skill section.
There's nothing right now.
Okay, great. So the next thing, next thing is the education section. This is very similar to what you actually have here. Same thing. Go in here, you actually sync it to your college to make sure that that shows up. And in addition to that, you could actually move the college experiences around. I have this here first because it was my most recent. But when my Loyola Ramblers were doing pretty well in the NCAA tournament a few years ago, drag and drop, move that to the top. And as you can imagine, up here at the top, it didn't actually work, but it would move Loyola up if I had done it right. I did move it up. It moved it up. And then, after they flamed out of the tournament this year, I moved it back down to where it was to have the highest degree on there. In addition to having your degrees, you can put information. So I was a speaker of the Student Senate and a couple other things that I put down there that help give people a little bit of a broader perspective of who I am as a person via my education. Now, next section I think is a very, very important, often overlooked section is the skills section here on LinkedIn. Now you see LinkedIn features 3 at the top of your skills section. And what you want to do is you want to make sure the top 3 skills that you choose are the ones that are most important. A, because most people are not going to look at the other 44. And the way you choose which ones are most important could be by endorsements or what you're trying to sell yourself. So you see here, I'm endorsed by the great Lindsay Pollock for LinkedIn, which was quite an honor for me because she's a mentor of mine. But that shows up very high on my profile, and I want people to be able to see that. To add more skills, click the plus button right over here. And if you add another skill, I can put an art here again, and you can see different things, concept art, whatever it is that you could add to your profile if you like. The other thing you can do is, let's say you want to make sure that you're highlighting the top 3 skills that are most important to you. Go over here, click on this little pencil. And if I go into here, actually I went the wrong way, it's up here to the reorder button. And look down over here. So I have program development is 3rd. I'm going to move social media up to number 2 here. And it should change around me over here on this one. If not, if I just refresh the page, it should do it. Let's see if that actually worked. There we go. To move social media up. And then I can change that back whenever it is that I want. Now, one of the more common questions I get, and it really is a great question, is, well, how do I know which skills are the most important skills for me to put there? Anyone want to take a stab at that? I want to get some people involved here because we haven't had much talking. How do you choose what the most important skills to put up there are? Yes, part of it has to do with what people say about you and your endorsements, but how do you know what the most important skills in your profession are? Anybody want to jump in there? And I'll start showing you a couple things here while we're doing on that. Nobody? All right, so let me show you this here.
Somebody
yes, please.
said they had, like, what is most difficult?
What is most difficult? What skills make you more valuable to your employer is a great answer to that, because yes, you want to show them what makes you more valuable. But one of the questions is, I'm a college student. How do I know what is most valuable to my employers? So I'm going to show you a little trick here. And I'm looking for the Lincoln Center for Performing Arts here. And I'm going on to their actually company page here. Now look at this. If I scroll down here just a little bit and I click on people, and then I click the next button twice, it's actually going to show me what people who work at Lincoln Center of Performing Arts are skilled at in terms of their numbers. And these are the kinds of things that you want to be adding to your profile. Now, it doesn't have to be just Lincoln Center. You could add the Daily Show. You could add You could add, Kennedy Center and try to triangulate around things that are of importance. But if they're putting this down, they're showing up at a lot of companies. These are the kinds of things that either you should put down as your skills if you have them, or try to develop those skills, because most likely those are going to be the skills that are very, very important because they're showing up more frequently. Just to show you here, in addition to this, one of the things you can do is, if you're under the Lincoln Center, we could actually put in purchase here. And this is actually going to show me the skills of alumni of purchase at the Lincoln Center. So you can see that acting and stage management and things like that. Plus, look at this. You can scroll down over here. It actually shows you the folks who are working there. So this could be a great way to engage with them. So I think it's important to make sure that you check this and then triangulate around multiple ideas, because you don't want to stick with just one company. And the ones that make the most sense are the ones you want to be adding to your profile and then highlighting as much as you can. Now, people often ask me if the endorsements mean anything. I don't think they mean that much, but my philosophy is I don't give out endorsements unless I actually mean it. So if somebody called me up and asked me about an endorsement that I gave to somebody, that some people like Lindsay endorsed me here, I can give them a reason why I endorse them. I don't take my word lightly. If I say something, I'm willing to back that up. And the way I back that up is by making sure that when I only endorse people when I actually fully believe in them. Any questions about that? We get into recommendations, which is the last part of the profile.
And no questions.
Okay, great. So recommendations are a very, very important part of your profile because it gives people more of a narrative to describe who you are, what you bring to the table, than does the simple endorsements for your skills. So this is something you want to try to get from folks. I personally believe if you get between 3 to 5 endorsements, it tends to kick you up in the search rankings a little bit higher. I can't prove that, but in any event, I think it gives a wider, broader perspective to your profile when you have those endorsements. So how do you add an endorsement? Click the plus button and you could ask for a recommendation. And we're going to sort of put in, shows up here. Oh, let's just do Wendy Margot. I can get the right one there, but this is my opportunity to ask her, and I can select where we know each other from and the place. This is the important part. Do not write this. This is the default. What you really want to write here is specifically where you met them, how you know them, what they could be saying for you, and what you want them to include to make it much more likely that they're actually going to put it on there. Now, one of the questions that I often get is, well, what if somebody sends me a recommendation that I do not like? And you don't have to actually worry about that because nobody is actually able to put anything on your profile without your permission to do so. So you see here, I have a pending one. And look at this guy. Here's somebody who tried to troll me into putting this onto my profile. Perfect Liars for Free was saying that I'm a perfect gentleman. So that's the kind of thing where someone's trying to troll me. I keep this here as a warning sign for people that you want to be careful to make sure to read what it is that people say. Now, I could go in here and ask that person to change it, but there's no point in that because they were just joking with me to begin with. More frequently, what happens is if I want to ask Chloe to make small changes to this, I can actually do that. I can go on over here and click on this and then ask Chloe to make a small change. And this is the important part. Specifically, can you change X, Y, and Z? Can you talk about how I was interactive during my LinkedIn webinar, for example? Now, again, you can't put it there unless they make the change, and they can't put it on yours unless you agree to the change. But the more specific it can be, the better. One thing I do not like about this is it doesn't allow you to order it any way that you want. It goes in the order of how they were given. So for example, Chloe gave me 2, so I turned at least one of them off. I'll turn one of them back on actually. So they show up on my profile, but there's no way to reorder these. You want to just make sure that you're highlighting the top ones, because again, nobody likes see more. Very few people are clicking the see more button and going further down on that. Okay. Any questions on that? Because there's one more thing to show you about the profile, then we're going to move on to the finding jobs.
So there's a question in the chat
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that maybe is a bit more about positions. So
Okay.
you want me to ask it now or after you're done with the profile?
Well, let's ask the question and then we'll
Okay. So I'm with a student who's feeling concerned about the impacts that the pandemic is had on the job market. Can you speak to this a bit, specifically with regard to recent grads being able to get entry-level positions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it is a challenge that everybody's facing, and I work in career services, so I'm facing that with students on a regular basis. And I think the second half of our session is really going to focus on that, as to how to engage the right people. First of all, how to find jobs and turn those cold leads into warm leads. So you're not just sending resumes to random places, but you're engaging people, and how to engage decision makers to make your opportunity to present yourself as a candidate better. So we're going to get to that question in much more detail in about 2 or 3 minutes, but I love the question because it really is a very good question. And just to show you here under view profile, you could add other sections to your LinkedIn profile. Click out of this. So if I scroll down over here to add profile section, positions, career breaks, these we have. Recommendations, courses can be very important. I tell a lot of students who are in accounting, for example, intermediate accounting 2 would be important to put down here so that places know that you're ready for their internship. And additional information, you could put publications. I actually had a client once that had a patent, projects, honors, and awards. I just want to show you here that when they have test scores, that doesn't mean you got a 95 on your biology midterm. That's referring to scores like your score on the CPA exam or your score for high level kinds of things like that. So you're not really putting the scores you got on sort of the regular exams that you're going to be taking. But you could actually add these things. I think it doesn't hurt to make it more robust as long as you have legitimate content to include there, and add the things that make it that are relevant to you and make you look better to the people who will be viewing your account. Okay, that's the first half of this. The second half, we're going to start looking into how to find jobs on LinkedIn. And like the question asked, how to make sure that I'm turning those cold leads as opposed to sending a random application into warm leads. So you click the little jobs button right over here at the top, that's top center. And I'm going to take a little detour here for a moment because this is something nobody uses yet on LinkedIn, and it's very, very important. There's a free virtual interview prep tool here on LinkedIn where you can record yourself actually answering questions to regular kinds of interview questions and be able to see it and get an actual readout as to how you did. So if you look at my answers down over here, if I click on this one, you'll see here that I actually have an evaluation if I'm speaking too quickly, my pitch variation. It also shows me, and I did this on purpose, where I stammered in the middle of the session. So you could actually review that potentially and make those kinds of changes that you need to make. I will say that AI is much more sophisticated than this in most places, but this is not a bad start. Plus, I can go right on here, request feedback, and I can send this, for example, my friendly neighborhood career services professional in my office and have her review it as well and give me an idea as to how she feels that I did. Now, LinkedIn claims that the video can only be viewed by the person you're sending it to, but general rule on social media is that anything you post anywhere is obviously available to everybody. So you just want to make sure that you are going to be careful in terms of what you're going to be sending and only send it to people that you trust. In addition to this, just so you know, the AI readout is only available on the computer you actually use to record it. So if I go back over here to one of my other answers, and I believe answer number, this one I did in my home, with my daughter's art in the background, you see there's no AI readout because I'm not on that computer currently. Okay, so that's a little detour, but I want to point that out because it's a tool that nobody's using and it's really, really a valuable tool. So jobs right up over here. Now I can go in here and start searching for jobs. And I did a couple searches here in advance just to see things that might be relevant to the students. So you can type it in here, or just because I did the search before, putting in stage management in New York. And you'll see here, it shows me different jobs that meet that search criteria. Now, it could take you a little while to find the right search terms that are actually giving you the right kind of responses. Stage direction, stage management, something along the lines of production assistant, whatever it happens to be. Once you get that, set an alert so it sends you an email either on a weekly or a daily basis whenever new jobs meet those criteria, because that way you won't miss any. Okay. Now, the next thing you could do here is, let's assume this is something I'm interested in. I'm not saying that we are. If I click on this over here, it's actually going to show me that I have a connection that works at this particular company. Now, this is my opportunity to go to Duncan and send him a message saying, hey, I'm looking to apply for this particular job at Innovations for Poverty Action. Can you tell me a little bit about what I need to do to make the process a little bit easier? Any advice you can give me? So it allows you to turn cold leads into warm leads. Now, let's see if we pull down here. Company alumni I have here. Also, potentially could have people from your college. I'm not sure. There we go. 2 alumni work here at this particular company from my school. Now, even though I am not connected to them, I can connect with them and ask them for that same opportunity to make this into a little bit of a warmer lead rather than the kind of lead that sort of just putting out there in general. Again, you can put in a lot of different search terms here. So set direction, and let's just see if this one actually has. Sometimes it actually shows you, and I don't see one here now, It actually shows you who posted the job. And that's a great way to engage with the person who posted it. I'm not saying it here right now. But the reason that's important is because it allows you to actually engage the person who actually posted the job. And the way to do that is, and just to show you the way that was before actually. So you see that 12 alumni work here. Let's see, this one. That should show it. Oh, it's not. All right. In any event, the point is that when you see someone and you want to make the connection request to them, I'm not sure why this is not working. There we go. Don't click connect here because that's going to send an automatic connection request. Click on their profile and then click the connect button, because then you can actually personalize the message to them, which means it's much, much more likely they're going to be willing to accept it rather than just getting a generic connection request. So always personalize that. So if you see the person who posted the job, as opposed to paying for an email to send them a message, click on their profile, send them a connection request where you're talking about how interested you potentially are in those jobs. Last thing to show you here under jobs is if you want to save this and get back to it later, you can. So actually there's a save button right over here. So I say I'm scrolling on my phone. I want to get back to this later, click the save button. That saved it. And when I go back into my profile and I want to get back to this later and get a better opportunity to apply for it, under resources here, under my items, it should be saved right over here. There we go. There's the save job, and I can go right in here and go back to where it was. You can save as many jobs as you like, so you can always go back and review it. And when you want to remove it, just click the unsave button, and that'll remove that job from your actual account. Any questions about jobs, how to apply for jobs?
There is just one question in the chat that just went back to profile, which was, would someone add courses to their profile if they are an instructor or professor, or only if they are a student?
So yeah, that's a great question. So actually, I don't have courses listed there for me because I do teach one course here at Turo, and where I actually have that is under my work experience. I put down adjunct instructor, and I actually put the name of the course here as a bullet under Turo, as opposed to putting the courses there. Because I think when people see the courses on the account, they tend to assume those are courses you have taken, not courses that you're able to present. Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, great. So the next thing I want to show you is, let's say you want to start applying for jobs and you're not that connected yet on LinkedIn. You want to start building your reputation as an expert in production design, in art, in dance, or anything like that. How do you start building those relationships with the kinds of people who can make a difference for you in terms of turning leads and opening opportunities for you? So the way you do that is going to the search tab up over here and start looking for certain search terms. So if I'm going to start putting in, and we're using set direction as the example today, but it doesn't have to be that. I click set direction in here and I click the posts button. This is going to show me people who have posted using the term set direction. This could be any search term. Again, you're going to have to play around with this to find the people who are the right people posting the right things that are of importance to your profession. When I work with my accounting students, general accounting principles or things like that are terminology they use. And the same thing will be true for some people working in the arts. You want to find the kind of terminology that people are actually using that gives you access to the people who are posting and allow you to demonstrate your particular expertise in those areas. So let's assume Daniel Newman here is saying something of value to me. Here's what I want to do. I want to go in here and click the comment button. First thing I want to do, click the add button. And this is going to allow me to actually tag him in the post. And then I want to put some information that really shows I'm an expert on what he's talking about. I read his post very carefully, so I'm not misrepresenting it. And I'm able to demonstrate my expertise on this particular area. In addition, if there are other comments that people have made on his posts, like Todd here, I can do the same thing over here. I can go in here and comment on Todd. And this is a great way to start building your reputation with people who are posting on topics of interest in your field. But again, the reiteration here is two things. First of all, I want to make sure you're getting the set terms correctly so that you're finding the people who really are people who are leaders in your particular profession and you're able to engage them. Always, always, always click that add button and tag them first, because that makes sure that they're going to see it. I think I had this in my notifications earlier today, but we can see here, if this actually opens up, just give me a second here. Yecheved Belsky, who somebody commented on my post earlier today, and I don't know why this is not working. I'll try to refresh the page. There we go. So if I scroll down here just a little bit, oops, just a little bit. Okay. a little further down because this is how much activity they have. Where is she here? Jaime Belsky, okay. And one other liked your comment. She liked my comment. You see, it's with one other. So that's because it wasn't actually tagged. But when she mentioned me in a comment, I actually get this message saying Jaime Belsky mentioned me in a comment. That means I'm much more likely to see it and engage with her content afterwards. So if I'm actually tagging the person and they know how to use notifications, chances are much, much more likely that they're going to actually be able to see you, and then you have the opportunity to engage with them. So I definitely recommend that you tag them. And again, LinkedIn is garbage in, garbage out. You don't want to be posting things that are not relevant. You want to be posting things that really demonstrate your area of expertise and how you're an expert in those particular areas. You know, I just had a post, somebody posted yesterday, said, if you could only do one, post on LinkedIn or comment on LinkedIn, which would you do? What do you guys think? You have a choice between commenting and posting your own content or only commenting. Which would you do? I'll play the Jeopardy music. Everybody want to jump in there? I'm agreeing with you 1000% on that, because when it comes to commenting, first of all, you're directly engaging with the people who are commenting. They see it, they get a positive feeling in the fact that you engage with them. Plus, you could target the people that you're looking very, very specifically. When you post something, it's going to show up in people's feeds, but you don't necessarily know who's seeing it, and you're not sure that the right people are going to be engaging with it. You could target your engagement based on the people that you want to engage, and that gives a much more powerful tool for making sure they recognize who you are. Because again, after I've engaged with Jaime Belsky, and I've done this with her a number of times, if I wasn't connected to her and she was somebody of interest in my field, I could send her a connection request mentioning the fact that we were engaged on this conversation about her post, and that's an opportunity to add her to my network in a way that's not asking for much. You know, she doesn't, I'm not trying to sell her anything, but she knows who I am. She respects me. We've gone from an unknown quantity to a known quantity, and she's much more willing to accept that. But posting is what you do over here. You can put down some information about things in your field. You can put a post of actually some videos and things like that. I post LinkedIn videos all the time. This is an opportunity to show your expertise, and it really does only show up in people's feeds, so you don't necessarily know how many people are seeing it. One of the more recent methodologies that's working really, really well here on LinkedIn is to actually use the polls as a means for engaging folks. If I scroll down over here, I'm going to go down to where my activity is. Okay, show activity and posts, and I'm going to show you a couple of different information on a couple of posts that I made. So I posted that I'm giving this session here. This got 15 impressions, which is not very good at all. I did a targeted poll that got 1,168 impressions, which is not bad in terms of numbers. This one has 269 impressions because that was a private thing. But if I go down over here to, where did it go? This one over here, this got 3,000, almost 4,000 impressions on this poll. There's another thing here about polls that make it better, because actually what you could actually do when you are the one that actually are the one that arranged for the poll, if you click on the votes, you can actually see how people voted on the poll. So what I do is, after I put up a poll, and this one was about the policy in New York about having salary transparency, I'll send Ed a message with talking and engaging him further on the fact that he voted. He showed interest in me by voting. I'm going to take that opportunity to engage them. Just by the way, click on their name as opposed to this little button over here, because if I click on his name, I can just go right over here to the message button when it shows up. If I click on this button over here, it's going to take me out of that page, and I need to go and find it again to go back and engage more people. But it's a great engagement opportunity, great way to build a connection with people. And one of the great things about LinkedIn messaging, like same way you would see it on WhatsApp, is it saves a record of who you've engaged with, and you can see the conversations you've had with people going backwards. So you can see conversations you have with people going back quite a while. And it's a great way to know that when you're reaching out to somebody, you have all the information that you've actually spoken to them about from previous conversations there. That's also why it's very, very important to make sure that you send a personalized connection request on LinkedIn, because when you do, it syncs directly to the messages. So when you actually see that person later on and you want to engage with them a year later, you actually see what it is you did and why it is you connected with them, okay? So that's why I definitely think the personalized connection requests are most important. Last thing I wanted to show you here, and then we'll pause for the general questions, is it's very important. I touched on this briefly before, to be checking who's viewed your profile on a regular basis. Now, if somebody's viewed my profile, it means they've showed interest in me, and I want to maximize that opportunity to see if there's any way I could offer my services to them. So that's right over here. Who's viewed your profile? I click on this. I can see, generally, if you don't have a premium account, the last 5 people who viewed your profile. So this is probably somebody that's here today. But here are some folks who viewed my profile. What I would normally do, and I'm going to do this afterwards, is as opposed to clicking, I'm not clicking the connect button here. What I'm going to actually do is click her picture, click the connect button here, then add a note. And thank you for viewing my profile. Please let me know how I can be of assistance to make sure she's getting a more direct kind of message from me as to why it is I want to connect with her and remind you that she viewed my profile. But let's see it, put you on the spot here again. Can anyone see a reason here why I might be a little bit hesitant to connect with her? This is a good example of that. Anyone see something here on the profile that gives me a reason to hesitate to connect with her? I just highlighted it. The reason is she has 228 connections, which means she isn't a particularly good networker. And this is one of the other tricks that a lot of people don't realize is whether you have 501 connections or you have 25,000 like I have, what shows up is this little 500 plus number over here. So if it's you have 501, people will see that and say, oh yeah, Chaim knows how to network. He's over 500. If you have 288, that number is going to show up, and I'm less likely, especially as an advanced user, to connect with somebody who doesn't have as many connections. Question, why do I have this here? This is what's called a tool that they actually have for creator mode. It doesn't show up on most profiles, and it doesn't show up for people who don't use creator mode. So get to that 501 connections. So when people see you, they're like, oh yeah, she looks like a good networker. That's somebody they want to connect with. Plus you'll see here, I got a connection request from somebody just the other day. I don't know who this guy is. You'll see he did not send me a personal message. So I don't know if I should connect, if I want to accept this or not. I mean, he looks like he's an interesting person, but the concern I have as a community of business owners is we're going to get what's called a pitch slap. My guess is after I accept his connection, he's going to give me a sales pitch pretty soon afterwards, in which case I would probably disconnect from him. Send that personalized message, and I'm much more likely to accept that. I'm probably going to accept it anyway, and then see what he does. But again, if you personalize it, then people are much, much more comfortable being able to engage with that per se. Okay, any questions about what we've spoken about in the last few minutes in terms of connection requests, in terms of searching for posts, in terms of posting yourself?
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
So when you're sending the personal messages, do you have recommendations for what to say? So for example, like 2 scenarios I've seen with students is trying to connect with an alum of the college who they don't know, but is in a field of their interest, or trying to connect with a recruiter who's at a company or organization that they're interested in.
Right, it's a great question. So here's what I normally advise people to do. Now, especially, you have to have patience with these things. If I go back here to Lincoln Center, remember we talked about this before, and I'm not going to put in purchase. You could put in purchase. Let me just pull one person out of here. Senior director. Let's say I want to engage with her. Now, she actually has the creator mode on, which, by the way, this is an important lesson here, because creator mode switches it's to follow as opposed to connect. To connect with this person, you need to click the more button, the connect button here, and that allows you to add a personalized note. A lot of people trip up over that. But what I would do here is I will scroll down. There you go. Here's her activity. I'm not sending her a message, so I read her activity and I start engaging her on what she's saying. Can't wait for summer. Oh, look at the effort of your team. At Lincoln Center, you're offering this. I build a relationship with her before I send that first connection request, because then she is much, much more likely to know who I am and to accept it. Again, not everybody's posting on a regular basis, and you need to make those decisions. When you find people like this, go down to that post, start commenting on it. Again, tag her so make sure she sees it, and make sure you're adding real value to what it is that she's actually said here. And again, you can also go down here if there's other people who have commented, you can comment on their things as well. So that's how you turn those cold leads into warm leads. Find your targets, then engage with them. Plus, another cool little tool here, I didn't check this out right before I started here. So if you do just go into search, I'm just going to type in a letter here for search. If you go to the people search, you can actually search the connections of your connections. So once you find people who are of value, and I go to all filters here, and I want to add the connections of, I always like to choose the great Dan Black, who is a big person in my professional association. I can actually search his connections and find people that he's connected to. Why is that important? When you find somebody like Dan Black who's connected to all the important people in the business world and recruiting world, chances are he's connected to those people as well, and I can do a search within his connections and start finding a way to engage those people who are of interest to me that he's connected to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the 1 hour. I want to open up the floor for general questions about anything we've spoken about today, or any other questions you might have about anything on LinkedIn. I like to call this the Stump Chaim portion of the session. So if any questions you have about anything on LinkedIn, feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer, I'll be happy to get back to you and give you the answer at another time. So any questions?
Hi, my name is Debbie.
Hi.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you. Thank
I've
you.
got a question. My name is Debbie, and I have a question. Nice to meet you. So everything's been excellent. So I have a question on experience. So if my most recent experience has been in museums, but been in healthcare, but I'm looking for a job here. Should my first experience be museum?
Yeah, that's
So it's
a great question.
chronological?
One of the things that I mentioned before, and this is a big problem with LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't do multiple areas of expertise well. So you have to start making some choices as to what sells you the best. I think the best way to highlight these things would be in your LinkedIn headline and over here under your industry. Because sometimes the job experience is a little bit hard to mess with because it shows up in chronological order generally, unless you're doing multiple things at one time. So this is where you would put that. I would also put it here in your LinkedIn headline and have that background image as well. That helps promote that brand. It is a little more difficult to mess with this unless you're doing multiple things, in which case you can pull one up. But LinkedIn does not do that well. They really, really need to fix this because everybody does side things nowadays. And to lock people into one area of expertise, I think, is silly for LinkedIn in the current climate, and they need to change it. But for now, I think the best bet is to put down that information in the places that I mentioned, plus post on topics and subjects that are of interest to people in that field. You'd also add skills that are related to that field in your skill section. So that answer the
Thank
question?
you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Other questions, please. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So with someone just starting out on LinkedIn, that reaching 500 connections may feel a little daunting. But do you have advice for the students starting out for a nice amount of connections to start with before, let's say, they would start to try to connect with an alum or somebody who's they don't know but has some sort of connection with?
So yeah, so usually I advise people, because there are a lot of people on LinkedIn, obviously, who have negative intentions. So you want to be kind of careful as to who you're actually reaching out to. So what I think is you want to have at least some connections with people that you're reaching out to so you get to that 500 number. So it could take a little bit longer. We want to make sure it's not just, I don't like connecting with just anybody. There's some people say, well, how does it hurt? Well, it hurts because they try to scam me. Somebody tried to scam me. I was trying to buy Yankee tickets. Somebody tried to scam me in terms of paying. When we got to Ticketmaster, like you said, send me the money if I dissolve. Like, yeah, that's not how it works. And it was somebody I saw on LinkedIn that I thought I knew, and I really didn't. So you want to stay away from people. Plus, there are people who set up dummy accounts that are trying to troll for your information. So I think it is important to try and be a little bit more careful with who you're connecting with, and try to target that as best as you can. Let me just see if I can see it here. It's not showing up over here. But there's actually, maybe it'll be under connections. There actually is a way that you can search your email address. Here it is, add personal contacts for your email address. And that will actually show you folks that you're connected to that you've emailed. And that can give you a great way to make sure that what you're sending is to people that you've interacted with at some point before. So I'm allowing LinkedIn to do this. Let's see if I didn't test this before, but let's make sure, let's see if this works. Should show me some of the folks that I'm connected to and have sent emails to through my Gmail account. And those could be great people for me to reach out to and send connection requests to, because I have that connection with them. And this is working on it right now. So uploading my relatively large email group from LinkedIn. I wasn't able to import it, but it should work if you have a smaller group, and you can do that. And that's a great way to make sure that you know the people that you're connecting with. Other questions?
Question.
Sure.
You were describing before and showing how when you are going into either following a company, an organization, how you might notice that there are alumni from your college at that organization. Can you just do another dive into following and how important that is and how that shows up on your profile as well as enables you
Okay.
to access alumni.
Right, so a couple things you can do. If you go to, I went to, let's do the Kennedy Center here, so that shows up. It's going right, oops. So Kennedy Center, I can go and click the follow button, which means that their updates are going to show up on my feed. And that is not a bad idea to do for the companies that you're really, really interested in. This is the one here, actually. So this might be a fake one over there. Performing Arts Center, I can go there, click the follow button. That means all their stuff is going to start showing up in my feed. In addition to that, I can just regularly check the ones that I want to. So I think he has it here at the bottom of my profile. It'll show you some of the places that I follow on a regular basis and get updates from that way. But you're going to miss things. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on LinkedIn, and when you're connected to a lot of places, you're not going to be able to see everything that goes through. So I think it's a good idea to check these things on a regular basis. There we go. Here are my companies. So there's 349 companies that I follow. I very rarely see anything of any one of them. So I think it's much better to be proactive and to reach out and look at those particular companies and get the data you can from those companies. And again, here is my opportunity to click the people button and find your alumni. And that will give you those folks. So there we go over here, and you got two of them over there. So that's probably the way to do it. Can't hurt to follow them, but I think, you know, again, because it's such my feed, especially as you get to a bigger account, the feed moves so fast, and you're not going to be following things on a regular basis. And their algorithm is what decides what's important for you and not. Who knows if their algorithm is right? So I'd be checking things that are of importance to you. Check on a regular basis. Check those posts that are relevant to you. Check those companies that are relevant to you. Be proactive. I mean, you know, one of the things that I used to say in my LinkedIn sessions is there's no LinkedIn magic. People seem to think if you go on LinkedIn, all these wonderful things are going to happen. Just like anything else, you need to be proactive. You need to make it work for you. There's no magic to this. It's using it proactively and consistently and in the right way that gets you the results that you're looking for. Other questions?
I have a question, Chaim.
Yes, please.
For starters, thank you for this wonderful talk. And
Thank you.
no problem. My question is for, let's say, LinkedIn upkeep, if you're adding a few stuff from over the months, rather than like bombarding your contacts with all these notifications, can you pick and choose like what actually gets displayed to who you're connected with?
So you're actually, if you're updating your employment, you're saying?
No, just like your profile in general. Like if you're doing some stuff, I imagine your contacts get notifications.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So here's how you turn that off. If you go to your employment, here's on the Ontario University, I click this little button right over here, up at the top here under Turo, it allows me to turn off the notifications. I default this to off because I don't want people getting bothered every time I make a small change. They're like, oh, you're working at Turo. Yeah, I've been here 14 and a half years. Keep this to off. The time to turn this on is if you make a major change. If I went from Turo and I start working, you know, at another school, that's when I would turn that on for the notifications. Default for this should be off. I usually advise people to give it 24 hours. If you want an update to show up, put it on, wait 24 hours to make the update. And if you're making changes and you put it off, wait 24 hours before you make those changes. That'll prevent them from getting the updates on a regular basis for small little tinkering you've done on your profile. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Other question? I have another one if somebody doesn't.
Please.
So I know you had mentioned, and you know, for the tagline, the headline, right? You want to customize that, and having just say purchase college student isn't really telling the reader much, right? Especially because that's what they're seeing in searches. Do you have any, you know, do you have recommendations for how to make that a little bit more aspirational, or like, so for example, if I have a journalism student who is a junior, has some experience, wants to go into broadcast journalism, but not a lot of experience, how do they make that? I mean,
So I usually advise something aspiring broadcast professional, and then list the skills that you have and things that you've done that would make somebody who's looking to hire a broadcast professional interested in your account. I once saw somebody say, I didn't prepare this before, but you want to say that I provide X to Y by doing Z. In other words, I'm an aspiring broadcast professional. I can provide these particular services to somebody who hires me through my experience or whatever it happens to be. So something like that, I think, works very, very well. And you want to use the kind of things that would make them confident that you're the kind of person who has the skills to be a great intern or full-time employee working as a broadcast professional. Does that make sense?
That does, thanks. And there's a question in the chat.
Mhm.
Any advice for newly graduated students getting themselves out there? So maybe some key pieces for that newly graduated student.
So I think engagement is really the most important tool. I would be on a regular basis. First of all, set up the job alerts so you know when jobs come in and be able to apply for them. But I'd be engaging folks on a regular basis and getting your name out there and building your reputation as the person who really adds valuable content on a regular basis in the areas that are most important and where the community or the industry leaders are actually commenting. Build your reputation that way. It's a great way to do it. And in addition to that, Twitter is another great place to do that as well. And it gives you the opportunity to build your reputation as a person and expert. Again, once you find one person who's an industry leader, potentially you can just keep searching their connections and engaging those connections as well.
And do you have any tips for a student who's first trying to kind of find that, even that first industry leader, to
So
kind
I
of,
think the first thing to do is to find the search terms that actually work for you. So again, it depends what you want. If you're in dance, you want to put, I don't know the exact search terms, but I'm going to put in river dance. I don't know if that's going to come up with anything or not.
but even even if it's more broad, like someone looking in, like maybe journalism's an easier.
Okay, so what I would do is if you're looking at the journalism journals, you're looking at journals and journalism professionals, what are they talking about? What are the issues in journalism? Right now, there's a big debate about Twitter and free speech online and section, I think it's 430 or whatever the section is. So there's a lot of conversation happening around that. Again, I'm not sure it's actually going to be that in journalism, but every field, there are conversations that the professional associations know about, what people are talking about, what's going on in that profession. Find those terms, put those search terms in and start engaging folks. So if you're not sure, look at what the professionals in your profession are saying. Professional associations, journals, Screen Actors Guild stuff. This is a great way to see what people are talking about and utilize the things that they're talking about to build your expertise in those particular areas that are of importance to your profession. So it's going to be very different depending on what the profession is and what your target is. But use as much information as you can from things that we know and from people that we know.
Thank you.
Other questions? This is great. Oh, look at that. Must Twitter showed up right here.
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to get into that particular argument, but if that's something that's relevant to you as a journalist, and that's what journalists are talking about, and it probably is because that's something that showed up over here, that could be a great way to find and engage the people who are talking about those conversational pieces. And that's going to be very different next week, by the way. Or maybe it won't actually, but generally it's going to be very different from week to week. And a lot of times you want to make sure you stay on top of that. So you're making sure you're using the terminology that's really, really important. Other questions?
I have one more. What is the status of groups, and are there, what are your thoughts on the
Great
group?
question. So I think LinkedIn basically killed their groups about 5, 6, 7 years ago. They really don't get the kind of play that they used to. Groups are over here, what we call the waffle board. It's over here. If you click on this, you could actually see groups. The only real value I see to groups is if you find a group that's relevant to your particular profession. One of the things you can do is send messages to people who are parts of that group, even if you're not actually connected to them. So if there are people here that are part of this group, I can actually go in here potentially and see the members, and the ones that are second degree, I can send a message to without sending them a connection request or sending them a, paying for an email. So that's the value of it. Plus, again, sometimes you can see some of them have interesting conversations. The problem is groups have become this big spam lot where people are basically promoting themselves and what they're trying to do, and it doesn't really have the same value as they used to 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It can hurt. Again, it gives you the opportunity to send messages to them, but it's not doing the same thing that it did several years ago.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, by the way, just to show you, if you have a group, you want to post your post specifically to a group, you're able to actually choose that over here. You'd actually choose group members, and you choose whichever one you want, ACPA commission, and do that. And one of the things they actually changed is they used to allow you to cross post. They got rid of that because people were posting the same promotional stuff to 50 groups. But it's still, if you want to post in the group, and there is conversation in some of these groups, and you find the ones that are relevant, and you're adding, again, the thing is add real value with your content. You're not just adding things, you're adding value with your content. That could be very valuable. Other questions? So I guess if there's no other questions, just to wrap up, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to come back. This is my 6th time here at Purchase. I always love coming and meeting with the students who actually always have incredible questions. Hopefully next year, and I said this last year, but hopefully next year we'll be able to be back in person and doing this actually in the auditorium. But it really is great coming back. And the parting message that I really want to tell people is, again, there's going to be a video of this because there's a lot of information you went through very quickly. So the video is a great way to make sure to go back and review some of the things that you have. But LinkedIn, there's no magic. You need to be proactive and create a strategy that works for you in order to engage those right people and then turn those people, engaged people, into potential job leads for yourself. Thank you so much for having me.
I just wanted to second our thanks and appreciation once again for coming back with such amazing, robust information about LinkedIn and the updates. You really have your have your ear to the changes, and
that's because I have no life. Yeah, but okay.
Oh, yes, I know you do. You're just a really great.
I'm just kidding.
You're a great multitasker.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we really thank you. And I do know that there's a lot of students who, there's a lot of shy students out there, a lot of students that I'm sure are brewing the questions. And if they do have questions and are something that we can't answer, will we be able to forward those questions to you following this event?
Absolutely. But let me just show you one thing again, because this is the one thing that's going to, because I have creator mode on, because I'm an advanced user. So just to show you again, because it's a little more complicated to send me a connection request with your question. So I'm clicking this profile. She actually has this on. You see here, it defaults to follow. If you click follow, you cannot send me a message. What you need to do is click the more button over here, go to connect, and say, hi, Chaim, I came to your Purchase LinkedIn webinar on April 27th. I want to ask you a question about how to do X, Y, and Z. That way you know that I get it. It's in my messages. I'll be happy to follow it up. But it will default to follow. Make sure to click that connection request. And I'm happy to accept connection requests from anybody who attended the session.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Chaim.
Thank you so much, Chaim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chaim.